Hey, everybody, we are live here, Washington WREIA, May 2022. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We're going to kind of let folks kind of come in as they come in. If you want to say hello, it's great. Harvey, John, and my wife are looking for a good wholesale real estate class. Would you kindly give us some good suggestions? Well, Harvey, I could probably help you out with that. Charlie, good to see you as people kind of come in. That's great as we start tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about something I think is really important. Yeah, some of you might think kind of a little esoteric, but is very important for us to kind of identify new opportunities as things change. We're going to talk about those changes. We're going to talk about areas that you might want to consider thinking about as we kind of move through these changes. And we're also going to be talking about what is happening kind of in the market today. Now, we do focus, Washington WREIA is kind of Washington, D.C. surrounding areas. That's a wide area, of course, but we have I have had some emails and some contacts with some folks in different markets down in the South, and even as far as California out west. They're picking up some of these broadcasts and they have some questions. So a lot of these things that we talk about, as I said, are very Washington, D.C. specific. But if you're tuning in or you happen to hear the rebroadcast, a lot of things that we're going to be talking about do apply to your markets as well. Obviously, laws and different ways of doing business differ from state to state, but you can take a lot of this general information that we're giving out and apply it specifically to your market. Looks like we got a few more folks coming in. Harvey, Dominic, good to see you. Always good to see Dominic. Dominic, I do a lot of deals together in the market, so it's always good to have him tune in. He always gives me a good feedback and critical feedback after our Washington WREIA meeting. So thanks for coming in. I want to start tonight again, thanking everybody. And you all, this is participatory. If you have any comments or questions as we go ahead and put them up on the screen. Justin, who helps me out with these broadcasts, will pick those off and kind of post them up on the screen. And I can also see some of the comments, some of the folks that are in the private rooms. But feel free to weigh in as we talk about this. One of the great things about Washington WREIA group like this, we've been around now for, 19, 20, 21 years, I guess, is just the participation from other investors. We can all learn so much from each other, and we glean a lot of things of what's going on in markets by talking to other investors. And again, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about tonight. If my face looks a little sunburned on screen, I do apologize. I just got back from 4 days in Florida. Very, very good friend of mine. In fact, my college roommate is leaving the area, and he got married, I guess, for the second time to a lovely young lady down in Florida this past week. And we had a really cool experience. If you ever get a chance to do this, take advantage of it. We were down in the kind of an hour, east of Orlando in the area of Cocoa Beach, Merritt Island, Florida, where the Kennedy Space Center is. And as we got down there, we found out that there would be a launch going off Thursday evening. So my wife and I grabbed a picnic and headed down to the beach, kind of set up camp, and we watched a launch from the Kennedy Space Center. And it was really, really cool. So if you ever get a chance to see that, I would take advantage of it. One of the challenges with these launches apparently is that they're scheduled, and then obviously a lot of things can go wrong. One being weather, and the other thing is different things that go on when you try to stage a launch. So it was really cool to see one of those things. So if you ever get a chance to do that, definitely head down there and take advantage of that. So I got back late last night and just preparing for WREIA today, and we're off and running. I'm just giving a few more folks a chance to kind of join us tonight as we begin. Hopefully everyone is doing well. Everyone's kind of taking advantage of the market that we're in now. And as I said, things are definitely changing as we go forward. So what I want to do tonight is basically, to sum this up, is when the phone rings, when you're out spending your marketing dollars, and if you're new, and looks like Harvey and a few other folks here, Laura, I see you're on. So Jeannie, I know you're relatively new to real estate investment. As some of you are listening to this, as you go out and you start networking, you start spending marketing dollars. My goal tonight is when that phone rings, okay, when the phone rings, when someone responds to something that you are marketing, that you have different options. So you're just not kind of a one trick pony, or maybe more importantly, what things are working today might be changing as we kind of go forward. So as I said, what is going on today? Let's first start there. What is coming? What is coming? Now, again, if you've been in the real estate market for the past few years, you've probably enjoyed some pretty good times. Again, depends on what your angle is. Again, those of you that are new, there are a lot of different ways to invest in real estate here in the Washington, D.C. metro area and other markets around the country. There's buy, renovate, and sell homes. There's tying up a property and wholesaling. As Harvey mentioned, he wanted to learn how to do that, how to go out, find a property, put that property under contract, and then turn around and sell that contract. And if you've been a wholesaler in this market the last few years, you've done very well, because there's other renovators and other people, long-term hold investors, that are hungry for deals. And if you have the ability to source deals, ability to find deals, there's always people out there that will buy those deals for a little bit more than you paid for it if you did the proper analysis on that particular property. So wholesalers have done very well. Buy, renovate, and sell people have done very well, because generally when we finish a property in the last few years, we put it on the market. We've had a contract within, generally the first weekend it's been on the market, or, maybe a week or two later. So the houses have been moving relatively quickly at very, very good prices, as you have read in the paper or online, that you've seen on TV. Different posts, different videos. Houses are moving and they're getting multiple offers. And so it's been very good for those folks. If you're a long-term investor, if you've held rental properties in the last few years, you've seen great appreciation. You've seen not only appreciation or increase in your rents, but you've also seen increase in the values of your property, which is great, right? On your net worth statement. Doesn't necessarily help you if you're not cashing those in, but it's nice to see that growth in your property's value. So as a whole, and there's 100 other different ways that you can invest in real estate, but as a whole, real estate investment has been very, very good in the last few years, and that has continued. If you've gone through this spring, you've seen it. I'm not sure about your businesses, but my particular one has been pretty good. When we're putting on a house, we're getting some offers. They're very good offers, and we're getting to a closing relatively quickly. Okay, but I think things are going to be changing here coming up as we go through the tail end of the spring market and we enter in the summer and certainly into the fall. I think you're going to see some of the following things occur. And let me just highlight kind of three of those. Number one, as all of you know, if any of you, been involved in any kind of media and you've seen any kind of newscast, social media, print media, any kind of media, you're certainly seeing that interest rates are rising. Right. We've had historic low interest rates for many, many, many years, where people are going and they're being able to secure 2.5, 3, low threes interest rates for 30-year fixed term. Now think about it. For 30 years, they're going to be paying this low rate. That is absolutely tremendous. It's kind of opened up the floodgates for a lot of people to qualify for a lot of house and to have relatively affordable payments compared to their incomes. They can afford it. Okay, they can afford it based on these low rates. And now that we are kind of experiencing this inflationary period and the Fed is kind of raising some of these key interest rates, okay, it's having an effect on long-term rates. And those rates are kind of bumping up a little bit, where we're starting to see rates that we have not seen for many years. You're starting to see rates in the mid fours, low fives. A lot of people think we're going to trend up to 6% fixed rate over a period of 30 years. Now, the good news is, be honest, the good news is those are still very, very good rates historically. If you're over the age of 30, maybe 35, you've certainly seen rates higher in your lifetime for 30-year fixed loans. All right. My first loan, I'm not dating myself too much, but when my wife and I bought our first home, we paid a 9% 30-year fixed rate. And we thought that was pretty good. So the rates are still historically low. Now, we don't know where this is going to go. We don't know how high rates could become. In the early 80s, a lot of you have heard the rates were up to 18%. Okay, 18%. God forbid we get to there. And if we do, we'll have another one of these WREIA meetings where we're going to say, what do you do in ridiculously high interest rate environment? But right now, we're definitely in a period where rates are accelerating. Okay, the no down. And the buyers are having a little bit of a sticker shock. They have high prices on their real estate. And when they get with their loan officer and sit down and do the math, they're paying an average of 30 to 35 to maybe 40% more than they would have a year ago for the same house, same payment. I mean, payments 30, 35% more. And so that is going to have an effect, number one. Number two, you're probably going to expect longer hold times. If you're a buy, renovate, and sell person, once you finish that house, don't necessarily count on all these properties selling in the first weekend or first week or two. You're going to have longer hold times. And those of you that are on the meeting tonight that have been around understand that. I mean, generally, when you finish a renovation in a normal market, it can take 30 days, maybe 45, 60 days to even get a contract. And we just have not been used to that for so many years. And when that happens, we'll come back to the results of these. But right now, just longer hold times. So if you're a buy, renovate, sell person, you got to be prepared for that. Same with you wholesalers. I've seen, wholesalers flash across my screen, more of the prolific wholesalers, the ones that have 8,000 names in a database and they just kind of shotgun it out. I've seen them come back. I've seen them come back with emails saying price adjustment. Clearly what's happened is some of the investors, some of the buy, renovate, sell guys saying, wait a minute, ho, we can't pay that much for a wholesale property right now. You're expecting, you're building in that prices are going to continue. You're building in that we can sell that property right as soon as we finish renovation. You're building in that renovation costs the same as it did 6 months ago. And all those things are not true. Inflation affects our renovation costs. A gallon of paint is more expensive. Lumber, drywall, everything that we use is more expensive. It takes a little longer to get. And so as a buy, renovate, sell guy, I'm going to be a little bit more choosy, if you will, and I'm not going to be able to pay some of these wholesale prices. And I'm starting to see those wholesalers understanding this, coming down on those prices. They're working with their sellers. They say, Mr. Seller, I can't get you this. I have to lower the price in order to move this property. So you're going to see longer hold times. I promise you that. That doesn't mean every property that you have, it's going to necessarily take 30, 40, 60, 90 days to get a contract. Some, maybe you get it in the first weekend. Some others, maybe it takes a little bit longer. As long as the property is in good shape, you've done a good renovation, and you've priced it according to the market, you should be able to get a contract within a relevant amount of time, wherever the market is, unless we completely crater, which I don't think we will. But if we do, there'll still be opportunities for buyers to buy homes. And then next thing you're also going to see is you're going to see seller concessions, meaning we haven't had to give any kind of closing cost help to a purchaser for 2-3 years now. You kind of laughed at that offer when it came through. Hey, I want 3% closing help. And Prince George's County routinely paid that for many market cycles. But right now we don't have to pay that. I think going forward, you better factor that into some of your analysis. So what I'm saying with some of these things is you have to be prepared from an analysis standpoint in order to make sure that you're, guarding yourself against getting burned. Make sure that you're not anticipating an extra $15,000, $20,000 when you finish your renovation. Make sure that you're accounting for inflation when you're doing your renovation numbers. Make sure you're accounting for longer hold times when you're holding a property after you finish the renovation. Even if you're wholesaling, understand that it might take you a little bit longer to find that right renovator to buy that contract off of you. And again, this is some generic things that happen. Every deal is a little bit different. I'm going to give you some solutions as we walk through this too, as we go forward. But that is, in my opinion, 3 things that I'm factoring in that are coming. I think there will be buyers out there in the market. I think we will probably have to hold our properties a little bit longer. I know interest rates are going up, and that will have an effect, certainly have an effect on our ability to raise our prices. I just don't think that's going to happen going forward. But on the bright side, up to now, things can change. But up to now, what's holding this market together is supply. There's just not a lot of supply in the market yet. There could be. Supply can catch up very, very quickly if all of a sudden 1, 2, 3, 4 months go by and people aren't selling their houses and they don't have the ability to lower them, and the houses sit on the market more, and you see more signs in the neighborhood, more signs in the cul-de-sac, and you'll start to see prices come down a little bit, and you'll have more supply. So the buyers will kind of get back into the driver's seat, if you will, and they have a little more ability to negotiate, a little more ability to take their time, ability to ask for concessions, and it will become a little bit more of an even market, if you will, versus a seller's market that we've been in now for many, a number of years. So those are a few things to watch out for. Now, the other thing that's holding the market together, I talk to a lot of investors over the course of the month. This is part of my natural routine here with WREIA and doing the trainings I've done over many years. Have access to a lot of different investors, different experience levels, different volume of projects that they're completing. But I do talk to them time to time, and I'll ask them, hey, what are you seeing? What are you feeling? What do you hope for going forward? And I get some ideas from that. I get I know what my own business is doing. And so it either reinforces what I'm seeing or I'm picking up things that maybe they are seeing. But it's funny because I was literally walking the dog last night. I got back from Florida and walked the dog and saw my neighbor. And my neighbor owns a house in our neighborhood right next door. He actually is one of the radio broadcasters for the Washington Wizards. I always like to talk to him about basketball. But I just got talking to him and I said, I was surprised not to see a for sale sign in your yard in this last market cycle. I know his kids have kind of grown and they're out of the house for the most part. And he and his wife had talked about selling this home and moving down maybe closer to downtown DC. And he said something that really struck me because I think it's very, very true with a lot of people right now that own homes throughout our area. He said, and he doesn't really follow the real estate market that much. I said, you get a really good number for your house right now. His house a little bit expanded, very nice house. And I said, do you realize you could get, X amount for your house? And he goes, yeah, you really think so? And I said, I know so. And he said, well, the main reason that we're not selling, we thought about it. The main reason is we have nowhere to go. And that is so true of so many people right now. He's in his late 50s, early 60s. And, he wants to stay in the area because obviously he's employed by the Wizards and hopes to be for a period of time. And he doesn't know where to go if he sold his house. He obviously would have equity to take somewhere, but the somewhere is just as expensive as the house that he owns. If he went to a condo in a new development, very, very expensive. If he went to one of these 3 or 4 level townhouses throughout the suburbs or close to DC, very, very expensive. So he's like, I don't really need to go through all the hassle and everything to trade equity for equity necessarily. I'm fine here. The house works and it's convenient for us. And that really is true with a lot of sellers. And that's holding up a lot of inventory in the market. And so if supply holds, meaning if we continue to have relatively low supply, I think we can walk through a little bit of this period of time to get us on the other side without too much damage, if you will. Now that's, being optimistic. The other side of that is the supply increases dramatically and the rates kind of push too many people out of the real estate market, the housing market, and you start to see some price declines, which certainly could happen because there's been some incredible price growth and appreciation in our market the last 2 or 3 years. So the only thing that I've learned doing this for 25 plus years is nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knew the pandemic, the housing market was going to go bananas. Nobody predicted that. And it's really hard to predict. There's too many things going on, that all these little things going on that really nobody knows. The best in the business, the brightest in the business, the guys with PhDs from Stanford and Princeton that have studied economics their entire lives or the real estate market their entire lives, they don't really know. They look at past data and data points and make predictions. Sometimes they're correct, sometimes they're wrong. But we do know that we're going to have higher rates. We do know that it's probably going to increase our holding times. We do know that seller concessions are probably going to come in the market. We do know that this crazy appreciation can't continue because our incomes aren't keeping up with it. We do know that inflation is here. We do know that the folks' purchasing power is going to be limited as we go forward. We believe. And so there are some things that we need to start focusing on and start getting ready for as some of this takes place. So the key thing, as I said, as I talk to other investors, the key thing is that you want to kind of get in the minds of your customers, right? As a good salesperson, as a good marketing company, as someone that's providing a service, which we are, you want to tailor that marketing piece to kind of, feed off of what they're feeling right now. There's so many people that send out, I buy houses for cash, settle in 7 days. And sometimes they're not really trying to meet where the needs are. Like in the last few years, a lot of your marketing should have been centered around equity. It's centered around older people that are going into nursing homes, people that are going to assisted living, people that have passed away, families that have inherited properties. And your marketing and your your media should have been focused on those folks, because that's where all the deals have been coming from. As the market changes, you have to start thinking about, okay, what's going to happen in the market? How can I tailor my marketing and my talk, if I will, to those customers? And so I think some of these things, and what I'm seeing, are going to come to fruition. And as I talk to some of the investors, one of them's on the broadcast right now, Dominic, is you're going to start seeing some more of the following. Dominic has been networking and been calling different local, smaller regional banks and different people in the note business. And he and I have been talking to one bank in particular, and they brought us a few notes. Now, why all of a sudden do you think a local regional bank or a mortgage servicer or mortgage originator would start bringing you a few notes? Well, a lot of it is because they're seeing what we're seeing. And a lot of these places have been originating these notes at very low interest rates, 2.5%, 3% for 30 years. Now, wouldn't it be in their best interest in some cases to package some of these notes, sell some of these notes off, even if they have to take a discount to get that cash back in order to lend it out at a much higher rate? Makes some sense. It's an educated guess. I mean, the folks that get not hurt, but the folks that don't make much money in an high inflationary period is lenders that are in fixed terms for long periods of time. The borrowers that have borrowed that money at 2 or 3%, they're the brilliant ones, right? As rates bump up to 5, 6, 7, 8%, I mean, they're the smart ones. They have secured and locked in their money for a long period of time. That's another reason, by the way, why supply might be constrained, because some people that have owned a house right now, say they've owned it for 3 or 4 years, 5 years, and they locked in a great rate, but hey, now they're kind of thinking about moving. They don't necessarily have to move, but they're thinking about it. They're doing the math in their head. Hey, we're going to sell this house and give up this great 3% rate to go buy another house, a more expensive house. Yes, maybe a bigger house, but we might have to, pay a lot more because our interest rate now is going to be 5 or 6%. So they're thinking maybe we just kind of add on to this house. Maybe we do a little renovation. Maybe we finish the basement, where we add an extension to the home. So a lot of these things could really hold supply back, which would be beneficial really for us as real estate investors from a market standpoint. Now, the other flip side of that is we can do very, very well in a market too that is changing. So our goal is to do well in any market, obviously. But so there's a lot of things going on here. But I thought it was curious that all of a sudden the banks are reaching out and saying, hey, we have these notes. You have to buy those at a substantial discount in order to make the math make sense. And these are performing notes. In order to make the math make sense for us, we don't want to all of a sudden, buy these discounted notes, think we got this great deal, and then we're locked into a 7, 8% rate for 30 years. We'll probably lose money on that from inflation. So you got to be careful. But I do think that more notes are going to be available. And as long as they're the right type of notes and they have some of the characteristics that we look for, and that you can turn those, it might be a good avenue to take a look at. The other thing I'm seeing, another investor I've known, for a long time. We had a nice phone conversation. I hadn't talked to him in a while. And, he mentioned that, hey, he and his partner have been picking up some long-term rentals. But the way they picked up those long-term rentals is very interesting to me. They have taken over, quietly assumed their debt. Now, they've been able to quietly assume that debt at such a low interest rate. Some of these mortgages, as I said, are 2 and 3.5%. So now they've taken over this mortgage, turned that property into long-term rental. And because the rate being so low and the rents being elevated now, they've been able to make that make sense. And so they're taking over and adding to their portfolio without having to qualify with a bank, without having to, have any on their credit reports, and they've been able to make some cash flow. So learning quiet assumptions, learning how to take over notes. And the beautiful part about this is that some of these notes were in default, but because of the forbearance arrangements that a lot of banks made with borrowers during the pandemic, they've been able to take over these kind of accounts that are in forbearance, and have such a low interest rate. So that's fantastic. So that's another opportunity. Adding to your portfolio, looking for longer term rentals, taking over and assuming debt. Tremendous opportunity now, and we're starting to see that. So again, think about encompassing that with a marketing plan toward a lot of these buyers that have bought in the last 3, 4, 5 years. Maybe they don't have a tremendous amount of equity, or maybe they do. Maybe they have a little bit. Maybe they have $60,000. Certainly not enough for you to buy, renovate, and sell the house, but certainly have the ability to take over those payments. And again, you can do this legally, and there's ways to get around the due on sale clause, and it might be an opportunity. I would also encourage you to continue, if you are a buy, fix, and sell person, and or you want to get into that business, to continue that. I've been buying, renovating, selling properties since 1993. I've been through 3 or 4 market cycles. Certainly, I walked through the Great Recession, buying, renovating, selling properties. You can still do it. You just have to have the ability. Or I'm sorry, you just have to have the awareness that things are changing, and then you have to factor that into some of your analysis. And that can be hard when we're changing, and we're right in the change right now, in my opinion, because the sellers in a lot of cases still believe this is just a tremendous real estate market. But believe me, they're reading the headlines too. They're seeing what's going on. And as it becomes more aware to them that it might be a little harder to sell that property, they might be a little bit more flexible. They might be a little more willing to come down on price. And they're going to have to in order for us to buy these houses to fix and sell them. What's happened the last year and a half, 2 years for a lot of buy, fix, sell people. And if you talk to a lot of them are doing less deals than they did 4 or 5 years ago. Why is that? Well, because the market's been so good. A lot of sellers, even if they're distressed, realtors got into their ear and they said, hey, just put the house in the market. Don't do anything to it and we'll sell it. And lo and behold, they've been able to. And they've been able to sell it for a much higher price than we can pay for it, because you're either another investor out there that has a different strategy. Maybe they're going to hold it long term, or they don't know what they're doing and they pay too much. Or a owner, a handyman special comes in. They're willing to take on some of this work to get a good deal. So that will change. And, I'm seeing buy, fix, and sells still this day, and I'm seeing prices come down. You just have to be careful and understand your analysis. See, to all this, there's knowledge and education that you need, and you got to make sure that you have a good grasp of that as markets change, and you have the ability to look for opportunities. The other thing, wholesale, man, great opportunities in wholesale, always. And I believe your name, Harvey, always opportunities with wholesaling real estate. Your numbers just change, and you just have to be confident in your numbers and maybe not be so greedy in order to continue your wholesale business. Now, something that has happened in the wholesale business, that's a huge opportunity. And I experienced this just last month, about 2 weeks ago. There are hedge funds, you've heard of them, and they've been just buying houses every which way all over the country. They haven't done as many in the Washington, D.C. market, but they're coming, and you're starting to hear their ads, and you're starting to see their presence in our market. And they're buying houses for the most part to hold as long-term rentals. One of the reasons they haven't been as active here in DC is because of a very, very expensive market. And sometimes it's hard to make sense of buying a property and renting it and making it make any sense. But with the rents getting elevated, with the rents rising, if they can find the right deals, they can make the numbers work. I had a property that I owned for many years as a rental, about 8 years, and just a little 2-level townhouse in Columbia, good little rental. And the renter came up, and we decided to sell the property. One of the investors I owned it with has asked me to sell a few properties, want to free up some cash, and it was fine with me. And, we did a little bit of lipstick. We did renovate the property fully on a level. And I saw one run on the market for $336, and I priced mine at $329.9 because mine had didn't have a half bath. And I was nervous because I wasn't getting a lot of phone calls. And I thought, okay, here comes the change. What are we going to be able to get for this property? And lo and behold, someone came and offered me all cash, quick closing, 10-day inspection, which raised my red flag, and I wanted the ability to sign the contract, which also raised my red flag. And I talked to the realtor and I said, I don't want to get in a situation where you're just dragging us out trying to flip this property and so forth, even though I have no idea how you would flip it. It's full market price. And he assured me it wasn't. He said, listen, I represent a buyer out of state that is buying some properties for long-term hold. And they're willing to pay full market price because the property's in decent shape and they're going to rent it out. And he flashed me $19 million in some Chase checking account. And I thought, I'm going to take a chance on this. I'm basically giving him a free 10-day option because they had the right to terminate. He assured me that the only reason they were inspecting the property is to make sure they could rent it and do the things they wanted to do to the house. I took a little bit of a risk, but lo and behold, that thing was smooth and closed right on time. We got full market price. And quite honestly, I don't think if that buyer came along, I would have gotten anywhere near 330. I think it would have been much, much lower. So again, I now have that contact and they said, anything you have 370,000 under that makes any kind of sense, let us know. We have cash and we're going to buy. And so these hedge funds, these people with quite a bit of money are starting to enter our area at the right time for us. So you could wholesale properties to them. You could do a light renovation and sell it to some of these hedge funds. You could even renovate the property in entirety. As long as it worked as a rental, you could find an end buyer through these hedge funds. And so a lot of that is happening across the country and is starting to enter into our market too. And as a real estate investor, if your specialty is finding good deals, and you can make a fortune. You can make a fortune just selling properties to these entities that are willing to pay, in my opinion, very, very good prices. And so we're seeing all these things in the market. So that's where you still want to be. You still want to wholesale real estate. You still want to buy, renovate, sell it. You still want to look for long-term rentals, and you want to look for notes. You just got to make sure your analysis is correct and that you weigh in some of the things that are happening. One of the things that I've noticed as I've gone through a couple different cycles is the change is the most difficult part, and I think we're in this change. So I think the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months are really kind of the most difficult part of this market cycle because we don't know what's kind of going to happen. We kind of have an idea, and then you're going to adjust your marketing, adjust your strategies based on some of this change. But as a change happens, as people get more used to these rates, as they come into the marketplace looking for their first home or rental property, they're going to become prepared. They're not going to be shocked at the payment, if you will. I do think prices are going to level. I think they might even come down a little bit. I don't think they're going to crash. Who knows? Maybe they will. If they do, start buying real estate. Start looking for good long-term rentals that you can buy. Next month, we're going to be starting talking about capital without using a bank. And so you can be prepared to raise capital in order to take advantage of where the market. Start looking for, if the market crashes like it did in 08, start looking for notes, for non-performing notes and performing notes that you can buy at tremendous discounts to make really, really good, really, really good cash flow. What advice do you have for a listing that is a FSBO? What advice do you have for a listing as a FSBO? That's pretty general. I'm not sure. Maybe listing as a FSBO that's not selling. Maybe add a little more detail to that. What's the exact question? Is maybe it's a FSBO and it's not selling. What do you do? Maybe weigh in on a little bit more detail to that question. Be happy to answer that for you. All right, skills to build. Skills to build on now. These are the things that I would really be focused on. Do it now. Don't wait for the market to change and then have to kind of go back to your library, go back to your mentors, or go back to your coaches. Start this process now. Number one, I would always advise this, is I would always learn how to understand financing and notes. I think it's the basis for real estate investment. Understanding how money works is very, very important. And I think there will be some opportunities in non-performing notes. I think there'll be some opportunity in performing notes. The challenge with performing notes is that initial interest rate is very, very low right now. and you have to have substantial discount, have to have the ability to figure out how you're going to work that note, how to structure that note, so you're not stuck with an average rate of return on your money for a very long period of time. That's what you got to watch out for a little bit on performing notes. I don't know if any of you have been perusing the internet or, God forbid, opened up the Washington Post in the last few weeks, but you're going to notice that there's a lot more auctions starting to happen. It was very dry for a while, moratorium on auctions. But now, as the pandemic is, I'm not going to say it's cleared up because they're always going to come up with the next variant, but as some of the courts have opened up and some of the things have kind of come back online, more and more foreclosures are starting to filter through the process. You're going to see a tremendous amount of auctions in the next 12 to 24 months. Get ready, understand the auction process, put together some money, understand how to analyze it, understand how to market to some of those. Be careful in Maryland, and you're going to get some great deals at auctions coming up. So now's the time to learn. Second thing that you should start right now is a short sale process. What is a short sale? How do you identify short sales? Once you have a short sale and the owner, who do you refer that person to? So you're going to start building your network out, building your short sale realtors, short sale attorneys. Understand how this works because, folks, a lot of properties went into forbearance. A lot of properties have grown in value a little bit, but these folks, in theory, could be a little bit upside down if the market decelerates or comes back a little bit. We're starting to see a few more short sales. So now's the time to get that under control and start understanding that. So short sales, we haven't had a short sale, at least I haven't, for a number of years. So you want to reintroduce yourself to some of that process. This is a time to build your network, build your realtor base, build your contractor base, build your money sources, build your professional network, start getting ready for a different market and an opportunistic market. Okay, opportunistic market. Charlie, I have several notes that are going to foreclosure in the next few weeks. Nothing for 2 years, and now things are really starting to move. Charlie's in the note business. There you go. Okay, so now he can begin to go through the foreclosure process, secure his property, and do what he needs to do. I have one too. I bought a non-performing note, and that has been, in the process now for many, many months. On a beautiful house out in Boyd's, Maryland. I'm very well secured. I'm fine, but it's time to get through the process and either let the note go at the auction and or take the property back, renovate it, and sell it, or do whatever. Good news is the property's increased in value in the last few years, so my note is even more secured. This is opportunistic, folks. This is a time we're kind of going forward into that period of time where you're going to be looking for those opportunities. Houses aren't going to fly off the market, in other words. We're still in that process where they're moving, but if that slows down, people start understanding, hey, they can't just move this piece of real estate, over a weekend. One of the disadvantages of real estate is that, unlike stocks, if you get in trouble with stocks or you have a personal financial issue and you own some stocks, you can go up to your computer, you can pull that up and you can push a button and say sell. And money will appear back in your account. It might not be as much as you want. It might be less than you invested, but the money will appear in your account the next day. It's very liquid. Here in real estate, if we own a home, right, and we have $100,000 of equity, wow, that's a lot of equity. But the market doesn't cooperate. We can't just sell that property in a weekend or a week or 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. And we need the money, or we need to get out of that debt. We can't afford the mortgage payment anymore. We can't afford the property taxes, the maintenance. They're going to turn to investors. And we haven't had that scenario for a while. And if that happens, you need to be ready. You need to be there to pick up some tremendous opportunities. And that's the benefit. That's, and a lot of investors have been waiting for this for a while, believe it or not. A lot of investors work better in a down market than they do in an up market. I've been fortunate. I've been steady because I've always gotten up in the morning and come to work and had a plan. And my income has not swayed tremendously up and down based on the market. I changed strategies. I changed ideas. I shared with you, I think last year, about what things I was doing the last few years with some of my renovations. I wasn't doing as much renovation. I was putting lipstick on a pig, if you will. I was, clearing the house out. I was making sure some of the things worked, and I was moving the house on. I wasn't moving it to other investors for the most part. Occasionally, I was generally moving it to homeowners that wanted a handyman special, and they paid top retail. And so it was kind of a retail wholesale, if you will. But those things are changing. I'm not going to be able to do that as much going forward. I'm going to have to be realistic in my price. I'm going to probably have to do more renovation. I'm going to have to make sure that it's, done well and priced well in order to move the houses. I'm prepared for that. So my income has always kind of been steady with the market. But I know some guys that make fortunes in down markets. And on the flip side, some people that do really, really well when the market is just soaring. But as soon as the market turns, they're out of business and they're on to something else because they can't figure out how to find houses, or they don't want to deal with the personal problems of people. They don't want to go to an auction. They don't want to deal with a third-party bank. They just want to buy a house, let it go up in value, and flip it and sell it and wholesale it and different things. Okay, that's fine. But if you understand how markets change and you understand where to spot opportunities and you're in the game in good markets and bad markets, I assure you over time, over these market cycles and changes, you will do very, very well and have pockets of tremendous prosperity. And I encourage you to do that. So skills to build on. We talked about that. And the last skill to build on that we're going to kind of morph into next month is raising capital. Now is the time to have what they call in our business dry powder, right? You want to have capital. You want to have, now again, this doesn't have to be your $1 million sitting in your bank account over at the Truist Bank. It doesn't have to be yours. In fact, in most part, it's not. Most part, it's usually someone else's money. But you need to start understanding how to attract and how to put together that money in order to take advantage of some of these opportunities that are coming down the pike. They're not here quite yet. They're starting to bubble. They're starting to, you're starting to hear, some inklings on them, like short sales, seeing more auctions. Banks are reaching out with some notes. I'm sure Charlie's going to all of a sudden have more tapes to take a look at. He's going to have a few more opportunities to look at some things that maybe he hasn't in the past. And so things are bubbling right now because we're in that period where no one quite knows what's going to happen. Everyone kind of feels like they know what's going to happen based on data, based on past experiences with inflationary periods, our run up in values, our run up in interest rates, people's incomes not keeping pace. We all kind of have an idea what's going to happen. But until it happens, we don't know. But we get prepared and we start looking and we continue our marketing and we change our marketing. We change it, and we try to direct it to what people are thinking, what people are feeling. And we try to tell people what to feel. Like, hey, your house isn't going to sell in a weekend. So you might want another option. We're the other option. If you get in a position where you need to sell, let us know, give us a call. We can offer you a quick transaction, hassle-free, so forth and so on. We're not the only solution, but we're another option. And that option has become more attractive as the market slows down a little bit. So you'll have some great opportunities. Then you have to know what to do with them. You have to properly analyze them. You have to have the ability to have good renovation crews. You have to have the ability to have some good renovation buyers if you're wholesaling. So all these things kind of go hand in hand with what we're trying to accomplish. Again, I thought this meeting this month in May, a lot of graduations, a lot of summer plans being thought about. I thought it would just be a good kind of sideline chat, if you will, neighborhood chat, and kind of what's going on and what I think is going to happen, and the things that I think we all need to do to be prepared for when that happens. I hope this kind of helped you kind of start getting your thinking caps on. Again, if you ever have any questions, if you need to work on any of this, if you want any kind of sessions, I do one-on-one sessions. They're very, very affordable. They're $500 for 3 one-hour sessions. If you want to talk about how to analyze properties, if you want to get a tutorial on notes, if you want to get a tutorial on wholesaling, if you want to understand how to analyze a buy, renovate, and sell, any of these things, I'm more than happy to schedule any of these one-on-one mentoring programs. I think Justin will put up a phone number. There you go. Just, text me or call me. And you can just let me know you need a little help with something. We can arrange some times either in person or we can do it online. But some of these things are important, and I would get ready. I would get ready. That's really my advice. And don't believe anybody that says I know what's going to happen, because nobody knows what's going to happen. If I knew what was going to happen throughout the course of my career, trust me, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you tonight. A lot of us wouldn't. I mean, you'd be worth 100, 200, 300, $400 million if you understood what was going on next. We don't, but we do need to react. We do need to change. And sometimes that's hard. We get stuck in our ways. But if you plan on being a long-term real estate investor, you're going to have market changes. You're going to have cycles. And as long as you adjust to those cycles and you look for those opportunities based on what the market is doing, you will be wildly successful. I can promise you that. So hopefully you enjoyed this. If we have any more questions, so Smith, I see. What advice do you have for last listing that is for sale by owner? You didn't give me any more details, so I'm going to guess what you're asking. If your question is what you need to do to sell that property and it hadn't sold yet, number one, maybe get with a realtor to do a comparative market analysis. I'm willing to do that for you, free of charge. Let's get a good value on the property that person is trying to sell. They're not using a realtor, which is fine. The second thing is, let's make sure that the property has very, very good curb appeal. It needs to have good first impressions, make sure everything's working in the house, or we got to price it accordingly. And finally, make sure, especially if you're FSBO, make sure that you have the ability to have really good professional pictures, the best pictures you can have, so you can just populate all the social media sites that you possibly can. If the house is in decent condition, if the house is priced well, if the house has been marketed through very professional pictures out to all the social media sites, you should be able to get a buyer. My guess is if it hasn't sold, there's a few things that are going on. Either it's not been marketed correctly, it's overpriced, or it's overpriced based on the condition. So feel free to reach out. You got the number on the screen. If I can help you with that for sale by owner, I'd be happy to. Okay, here's a little more detail. On the sale for owner, is it wise to have the owner hold the mortgage? Sure. If you can buy a property that's an owner owns and they're willing to hold the mortgage. And again, this is perfect. I could take you on the road. We're going to be talking more of these strategies next month when we really focus in on financing. But if an owner is willing to hold a mortgage, absolutely. There's no reason to go to a bank. As long as you can agree on a fair term, as long as you can agree to a fair rate of return, an interest rate, and however long you want to own the home. The payments are affordable. It works for what you want, either if you're moving in and or if you're holding the house for long-term rental. Absolutely, if the owner is willing to hold financing or paper, absolutely pursue that and sit down with them and see if you can kind of put that together. Again, if you need help with that, if you need any kind of help with that, strategies, anything, feel free to reach out. Feel free to reach out by email, free to reach out by cell phone, text. Be happy to help you with any of that. Belinda, what research are you using for auctions, and what are your thoughts on auction properties that state the buyer has to get whomever is in the property out? Easy, hard. Okay, great. Well, auctions are easy. This is what I suggest you do. I'm going to make you do a little work. Not a lot of work. I would go buy the Washington Post tomorrow. Go to any 7-Eleven or anywhere, buy the Washington Post. In the back of the sports section, you'll see auctions that are being listed all around the area. Just focus in on the auction houses and the auction attorneys. They all have websites, so you can make a list of 3 or 4 auction houses and or auction attorneys. I'm not going to give those out to you because I want you to do this work. And then you just follow those auction sites in order to figure out what houses that you are interested in and when that auction is, how much deposit you need, bidding process, and so forth. That's number one. Number two, if they're saying that the buyer, first of all, you should drive by the property. Okay. You should drive by the property and you should take a look. You can kind of tell if the property is occupied or not. But if they're telling you that the property is occupied and it's you're responsible for getting the person out, it can be easy and it can be hard. It depends on the person. If they fight you, you're going to have to go and evict those people. If you're the winning bidder at the auction and they will not leave, you have to go through the eviction process. And most jurisdictions in our area will not allow you to start that eviction process until you actually own the property, which again can take a number of months in order to get the deed from the county courthouse, depending on location, depending on the rules. It can take you a little while to get that person out. Factor that into your bid. Now, sometimes you win the property, you go to the house, you either leave them a note, you knock on the door, You tell them who you are. I'm John Peterson. I bought your property. I'd like to work with you to find you a suitable place to move. Maybe you give them a little cash for keys. Maybe it costs you a couple more $1,000 to help them move. Maybe you get them a moving truck. Folks, we've done all of those things. So you just got to be prepared to work a little bit. You need to factor that in, though, if there's someone in that house, because if you have to evict them because the courts are backed up, it could take you quite a long time. But if you got a good enough deal, you're not worried about that, but you have to take that into account. Again, if someone wants a tutorial on auctions, if you want to sit down and go through all this and give you a good plan, I'm available. 3 1-hour sessions, $500 is pretty cheap. I do that to kind of give back to the community that's helped me so much. And I love talking and working with people and mentoring folks. So if I can help you, just let me know. Great question, though, Belinda, and it's coming. But I would just go to the back of the Washington Post tomorrow, sports section, pull it out. You'll start seeing these auctions. Refer to their websites. Put your websites in your browser, and you'll be all set. You don't have to continue to buy the post. You'll see all the listings on their websites and so forth. So, a great way to do that. Hope, okay, Marvin, we got another one. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone is well. John had a couple of questions, but I think the first one is where or how do you look for a GC to do kitchen, bath upgrades, and paint framing? All right, Marvin, great question. Great question. You're obviously going the GC route. There are many different ways to renovate a house. It sounds like from your question, you would like to hire a general contractor to work with you directly and have him manage all your subcontractors, which is fine. So where do you find that general contractor? Well, lots of different ways. The best way is any kind of referral. Any kind of referral you can get from any homeowner and or other investor that has worked with a general contractor that they trust, that is somewhat affordable, that manages their property correctly, is probably the best way. You can also advertise it, social media platforms. Be very specific on who and what you're looking for. You'll get some replies. You can also go on Angie's list. It's called Angie now. And you can look, type in general contract, see what you find in the area that you're looking. You interview them, you talk to them, you kind of see how they operate. That's another way. The other way is to just, you could obviously be your own general contractor. Sounds like you don't want to do that. You could also stop by work sites and start gathering names. And you could, try to find that one lead person, that project manager, that person that can lead that project. It's really by trial and error. It's through referral. It's through you advertising. It's through you going on different platforms and looking for that general contractor that's advertising, looking for jobs or properties. That's the other thing that's going to change, folks. General contractors, subcontractors, painters, framers, drywall guys, window installers, all of them have been really, really busy the last 2-3 years. They've been swamped. That's going to change. I believe that's going to change. We're starting to see inklings of that. People are reaching out. Hey, do you have any work? Hey, I got a little gap in my schedule. Do you have anything I can fill in with? You're going to start seeing, as inflation takes hold, they might be a little slower. People might be a little reluctant to start doing as many house projects when they hear some of the prices. And so that might change. You might have an opportunity to put a couple good contractors in your networking portfolio, if you will. So all that could change a little bit. But great question, Marvin. Again, reach out to me privately if you have some hard times with that. More than happy to try to help you find that perfect GC. It's not easy. None of this is. I'm redoing a bathroom for my mother-in-law in Columbia, South Carolina. I found the guy online. Started out great. Really fell down in the middle and is kind of recouping and getting the project finished in a little longer, a little more expensive time frame than he thought. So it's not easy, and I've been doing this a long time. But you can find the right person, and when you find them, the good news is you have that person. You treat them well, you refer them out, you keep them close, and you're good to go for many, many years. Hope that some of that was helpful. We're going to let you out of here just a tad early. We appreciate you tuning in. Do you have any questions or you have any ideas for future WREIA meetings? We're happy to hear those. And it's good to see a lot of you on. I hope all of you are doing well. Don't be shy. Feel free to reach out. I love talking with all of you about real estate investment. Take care, and we'll see you next month.